They set up the shy deaf girl on a blind date as a joke. What the single dad CEO did next left them frozen. The hum of fluorescent lights echoed across the open-concept floor of Genevan's Medical Technologies, one of the most respected biotech firms in the state. On the 27th floor, inside a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city, 3 middle managers sat close together, bonded not by teamwork, but by resentment. Kyle leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a crooked smirk on his face. "He's not real," he muttered. Bonnie looked up from her coffee. "Who?" "Daniel," Kyle scoffed. "Come on. No one is that perfect." Mux chuckled. "Widowed CEO, raising a 6-year-old on his own, and he still finds time to check on interns and help janitors fix the vending machine." "Please," Kyle said coldly. "He brings his daughter, Ruby, to company picnics. Everyone thinks he's some kind of saint." Bonnie shifted in her seat. "Isn't that a good thing?" Kyle's smile faded. "Saints don't get promoted. And he's 2 board votes away from controlling national expansion." His jaw tightened. "That position should have been one of ours." The room fell quiet for a moment. "So," Bonnie said carefully, lowering her voice, "what are you thinking?" Kyle leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "We expose the act." Max raised an eyebrow. "Expose how?" "We put him in a situation where kindness isn't convenient anymore," Kyle replied. "Let's see if Mr. Nice Guy survives that." The plan came together quickly. Through a friend on a dating app, they arranged a blind date for Daniel. The woman was beautiful, intelligent, and kind, but she was also deaf. Her name was Lena Park. She worked as a content writer for nonprofit organizations. Gentle presence, sharp mind. Her profile was often overlooked by others, but to them, she was perfect. Not a person, a test. An anonymous invitation was sent. Dinner, Riverside Grill, 7 p.m. The plan didn't stay theoretical for long. By the next morning, everything was already in motion. Using a carefully curated dating profile, an anonymous invitation was sent to Daniel Reed. It looked normal, polite, intelligent, and thoughtfully written. Nothing about it hinted at manipulation or cruelty. The message suggested dinner at Riverside Grill, an upscale restaurant by the river, known for its soft lighting and intimate atmosphere. 7 o'clock, Friday night. Kyle personally requested a corner booth. From the mezzanine above, the angle was perfect. The table would feel private, yet every expression would be visible. Earlier that afternoon, he had slipped a tiny wireless camera into the floral centerpiece at the center of the table. Max tested the feed on his phone. "Perfect," he said. "Clear video. Clear audio." Bonnie forced a laugh, though something about it made her uneasy. "This still feels cold." Kyle didn't look up, so it was being passed over year after year. Across the city, in a small, neatly kept apartment, Lena Park stood in front of her mirror. Blind dates were nothing new to her, but they never stopped being exhausting. She chose a simple blue dress, not flashy, not dull, just comfortable. She tucked her hair behind her ears so her lips would be easy to read. Her profile clearly stated that she was deaf. Still, she'd learned to prepare herself for disappointment. Some people canceled before meeting her. Others stayed out of politeness, their smiles tight and forced, already searching for an excuse to leave. If you can't see past it, she thought, "I won't stay long." At Riverside Grill, the hostess greeted Daniel Reed as he stepped inside. He arrived 15 minutes early, as he always did. Daniel adjusted the collar of his shirt and took a quiet breath. Important meetings never made him nervous, but this did. Personal things always did. As he followed the hostess toward the booth, his daughter's voice echoed in his mind. As Lena Park stepped fully into Riverside Grill, her awareness sharpened. She wasn't listening for voices, she was watching faces, mouths, expressions, the subtle movements people never realized they made while speaking. First dates were always a careful balance of hope and guarded expectation. The host said something to her. She read his lips, nodded politely, and followed him toward a corner booth. Then she saw him. Daniel Reed had already stood up. There was nothing rushed or awkward about the way he moved. No nervosism, no forced enthusiasm. He simply rose, calmly, as if greeting someone he had been expecting. And then he lifted his hands. "Nice to meet you." Sign language. Lena stopped mid-step. For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. Her eyes flicked to his hands, then back to his face. Her breath caught, a quiet release of tension she hadn't realized she was holding. "You've signed?" she asked, her hands moving carefully. Daniel smiled. Not proudly, not dramatically. "I do," he signed and spoke at the same time. "Not perfectly, but I'm learning." Above them, on a mezzanine level, 3 people stared at a phone screen in stunned silence. Kyle's smile vanished. Bonnie leaned closer. Max forgot to sip his drink. At the table, Lena eased into her seat. Her shoulders relaxed, her posture softening in a way that felt almost unfamiliar. For once, she wasn't preparing herself to explain, apologize, or shrink. Daniel slid the menu toward her. "Would you like me to translate?" he signed. "Or do you prefer reading lips?" "I read lips," Lena replied, smiling slightly. "But thank you." That thank you wasn't polite, it was genuine. When the waiter arrived and began describing the specials, Daniel turned slightly toward Lena and signed every word. Slowly, naturally, without exaggeration, as if this was simply how conversation worked. Lena watched him with quiet disbelief. Not pity, not performance, just inclusion. The waiter walked away, and for the first time since Lena had arrived, there was a pause. Not an awkward one, the kind that demanded quick words to fill it, but a gentle space where neither of them felt rushed. Daniel broke the silence first. "So," he signed, his movements steady and deliberate. "How was your day?" Lena smiled at the simplicity of the question. Most people rush straight into explanations, into curiosity about her hearing loss, into things that made her feel like a subject instead of a person. "It was quiet," she replied. "Which I like." Daniel nodded, understanding without needing further detail. They talked easily after that, about books they loved, about favorite places to walk when thoughts got heavy, about how silence could feel peaceful or isolating, depending on who shared it with you. Then Lena hesitated. Daniel noticed immediately. He didn't interrupt. He simply waited. "Can I ask you something honest?" she signed. "Always," he replied. She took a slow breath. "Why did you agree to this date?" The question wasn't defensive. It was careful. Experience had taught her to be. Daniel considered it. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he wanted to give her the real one. "I'm not good at dating," he admitted. "I lost my wife 3 years ago. Since then, I've mostly focused on my daughter. When I saw your profile, it felt calm. Real." Lena's expression softened. "Grief, recognized grief. I've had people cancel," she said quietly. "Some stay, but they don't really see me. They talk around me." Daniel's hands stilled for a moment. "That's not okay," he signed. She shrugged lightly. "You get used to it." "No," he said gently, meeting her eyes. "You shouldn't have to." Above them, the observers were no longer entertained. Mux frowned. "This is going well." Kyle's fingers tightened around his phone. "Too well." Bonnie swallowed. "He's actually listening." From the mezzanine level, the mood had shifted completely. Kyle leaned closer to his phone, refreshing the live feed, as if hoping the scene would suddenly change. It didn't. Below them, Daniel and Lena were still talking, still smiling, still comfortable. "This isn't what was supposed to happen," Max muttered. Bonnie crossed her arms, her excitement replaced by something uneasy. "He's not slipping. He's not uncomfortable. He's better than normal." Kyle's jaw clenched. Nobody is that perfect. But the screen didn't lie. At the table, Lena had relaxed in her seat, her shoulders no longer tense, her movements more natural. She told Daniel about her writing work, how she helped nonprofits shape their messages, how words mattered even when spoken voices were absent. "I believe stories give people dignity," she signed, "especially the ones who are ignored." Daniel watched her with genuine admiration. "That's powerful," he replied. "You give people something lasting." She blinked, caught off guard. Compliments usually came wrapped in pity. This one didn't. "I didn't expect you to understand," she admitted. "I didn't expect to," Daniel said honestly. "I just wanted to listen." That, more than anything, disarmed her. The conversation drifted to family. Lena spoke about growing up with parents who tried, but never fully learned sign language, about feeling loved, but not fully heard. Daniel shared stories about Ruby, her endless questions, her obsession with dinosaurs, her belief that lemonade could fix anything. "She thinks it's magic," he said with a small smile. Lena laughed softly. She might be right. When their plates were cleared, Lena hesitated again. "I should tell you something," she signed. Daniel nodded. "I almost didn't come tonight," she confessed. "Blind dates don't usually go well for me." "I'm glad you did," he replied without hesitation. Upstairs, Bonnie's voice dropped. "This feels wrong." The atmosphere at the table had changed, but not in the way the watchers expected. Instead of embarrassment or discomfort, there was a deeper calm, the kind that forms after trust has quietly settled in. Lena adjusted Daniel's jacket around her shoulders, not out of necessity, but appreciation. The fabric still held his warmth. "Are you okay?" Daniel signed. She nodded. "More than okay." They sat back as fresh water was brought, the waiter apologizing profusely. Daniel waved it off with an easy smile, signing a reassurance that required no further explanation. As the noise of the restaurant resumed around them, Daniel's attention shifted, not to the crowd, but to something small and reflective near the center of the table. A glint, barely noticeable, almost nothing, almost. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. Years of boardrooms and negotiations had trained him to notice details others missed. He tilted his water glass just enough. There it was, a distorted reflection of a tiny lens hidden among the floral centerpiece. His chest tightened. He didn't react immediately. He didn't look up. He didn't give anything away. Instead, he looked at Lena. Her expression was open, unguarded, real, and that made what he had discovered hurt more. Not for himself, but for her. "Lena," he signed gently, "give me one moment." She nodded, sensing the shift but trusting him enough not to question it yet. Daniel stood and smoothed his jacket sleeves, then walked calmly toward the staircase leading to the mezzanine. Above, panic hit instantly. He saw it. Max whispered, "Call straight and quickly. Stay calm." Bonnie's face drained of color. "Daniel." He stopped in front of them. No raised voice. No anger on display. Just a quiet stillness that felt heavier than shouting. "You arranged this," Daniel said evenly. No one answered. He continued, his voice low but sharp. "You used a woman, a real person, to try to prove a point." Kyle opened his mouth, but no words came. Lena didn't speak right away. The restaurant sounds faded into the background as her mind replayed everything. The smiles, the laughter, the ease she had felt. The possibility that it had all been staged cut deep, even if Daniel's sincerity hadn't. She looked down at her hands. "Were they laughing?" She signed slowly. "While we talked." Daniel's chest tightened. He chose honesty, even though it hurt. "Yes," he admitted. At first. Her jaw tensed, but she didn't cry. She had done that before, in other moments that had felt just as sharp. Instead, she breathed in, grounding herself. "And you?" she asked. "What were you doing?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "I was choosing you." That stopped her. She lifted her eyes, searching his face again. Not for charm, not for reassurance, but for truth. It was there, steady, unwavering. "I've been someone's lesson before," she signed. "Someone's story, someone's experiment. I won't let you be that," Daniel replied. "Not tonight, not ever." For a moment, she considered leaving. It would have been easier, safer. But safety had never healed her. It had only kept her alone. "You should know something," she signed. "I don't forgive easily." Daniel nodded. "I wouldn't expect you to." But she continued, her movements slow but firm. "I know when something is real." She slid his jacket back toward him, not as rejection, but as closure for the moment. "Take me home," she signed. Not in a romantic way, just away from here. Relief softened his shoulders. Of course. They left together quietly, without drawing attention. Upstairs, Kyle, Bonnie, and Max watched them go, not victorious, not clever, but exposed. Outside, the night air was cool and grounding. Streetlights reflected softly on the pavement. Daniel walked beside her, not ahead, not behind. "Thank you," Lena signed suddenly. "For telling me the truth." "Thank you," he replied. "For staying." At her apartment building, they stopped. This was the moment where things usually end. 3 weeks passed. Not the kind of weeks that rushed forward, but the kind that settled slowly, each day folding into the next. Life returned to its routines, or at least tried to. For Lena, mornings began with coffee and quiet. She worked from her small desk near the window, fingers flying across the keyboard as she shaped stories for nonprofits and community groups. Yet, between sentences, her thoughts drifted. To Daniel, she replayed moments she hadn't expected to miss. The way he waited before responding, the care in his hands when he signed, the steadiness of his presence. She didn't romanticize it. She examined it carefully, like something fragile but worth protecting. For Daniel, the weeks were full but oddly lighter. Ruby practiced her signs every evening, correcting him with dramatic seriousness when he got them wrong. He found himself smiling more, listening more, not just with his ears, but with intention. One afternoon, Lena received an email. Subject, no expectations. She paused before opening it. Inside, the message was simple. Elena, I hope you've been well. I wanted to thank you again for your honesty and for trusting me enough to stay that night. There's no pressure to reply. If you ever want to talk, coffee, a walk, or just silence, I'd like that. Daniel. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she smiled. They met on a Saturday afternoon at a small park near the river. No reservaciones. No cameras. No audience. Daniel arrived with Ruby. She wanted to meet you. He explained gently, signing as he spoke. Ruby stood in front of Lena, rocking slightly on her heels, clearly nervous. Her fingers moved slowly. Hello, I am Ruby. Lena knelt immediately, her eyes soft. She signed back carefully, matching Ruby's pace. Hello, Ruby. I'm very happy to meet you. Ruby beamed. They spent the afternoon walking along the river, Ruby proudly pointing out ducks and signing every animal she recognized. The conference room on the 27th floor felt colder than usual. Kyle sat stiffly at the long glass table, his confidence replaced by tension. Bonnie avoided eye contact, fingers nervously twisting a pen. Max stared straight ahead, jaw tight. At the head of the table, Daniel stood. He didn't look angry. That somehow made it worse. The board members listened in silence as Daniel explained what had happened. Not dramatically, not emotionally, but clearly. Every detail. The camera, the manipulation, the violation of trust. This wasn't about a date, Daniel said calmly. It was about power. No one interrupted. He continued. You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected a woman who had nothing to do with your ambition. You turned her dignity into a tool. The chairwoman folded her hands. Why didn't you come to us immediately? Daniel met her gaze. Because I wanted to see what kind of leaders you intended to be. That landed heavily. Bonnie's voice shook. We didn't think. That's the problem, Daniel said gently. You didn't. The board excused the 3 managers from the room. When they returned an hour later, the decision was final. Kyle was removed from any leadership track and placed under formal review. Max was reassigned and stripped of oversight responsibilities. Bonnie received a final warning and mandatory ethics training. None of them protested. Outside the room, Daniel paused alone, staring out at the city skyline. Leadership, he realized, wasn't about authority. It was about accountability. That evening, Daniel stopped by Lena's apartment with permission. No surprises. He told her everything. They faced consequences, he signed. But I wanted you to know, your dignity was defended. Lena listened carefully. Thank you, she said. Not for punishing them, for standing up. Later, as they sat on her couch, quiet and comfortable, she asked, Does this affect your career? Daniel smiled slightly. If it does, I'm okay with that. Spring arrived quietly. Not all at once, but in small signs. Softer mornings, longer evenings, the return of color to trees that had stood bare for too long. Lena noticed it first. She stood in Daniel's kitchen, sunlight spilling across the floor as Ruby sat at the table practicing her signs with fierce concentration. Her hands moved carefully, her tongue poking out in focus. Family, Ruby signed, looking up proudly. Lena's breath caught. Yes, she signed back gently. Family. Daniel watched from the doorway. Something steady and peaceful settling inside him. The house that once echoed with absence now held warmth again. Not loud, not rushed, just real. They hadn't labeled anything. No promises made too early. No grand declarations. Just shared mornings, quiet dinners, and a growing understanding that love didn't need to arrive dramatically to be true. One afternoon, Lena and Daniel walked along the same river where they had met weeks earlier. The water moved steadily, reflecting the sky. I used to think silence meant loneliness, Lena signed. Now I know it can mean safety. Daniel nodded. You taught me that listening is an action. They stopped near the railing. Lena turned to him. I don't need someone to save me. I know, Daniel replied. I just want to walk beside you. She smiled. That evening, Ruby ran into the living room holding a piece of paper covered in messy drawings. It's us, she signed excitedly. Stick figures stood hand in hand, 3 of them. Lena knelt down, emotion tightening her chest. It's perfect. Daniel cleared his throat. Ruby has something else to ask. Ruby looked between them, then signed carefully. Can Lena stay? The room went still. Daniel didn't answer for her. Lena took a breath, then signed back gently. I'm not leaving. Ruby threw her arms around her. Later that night, after Ruby fell asleep, Daniel and Lena sat on the porch, wrapped in a shared blanket. The world felt quiet but full.